Our guest has spent 20 plus years navigating cross-cultural legal landscapes across India and London. Ms. Mahalakshmi Pathapati.
I had doubts, but it taught me something fundamental. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's moving forward in spite of that fear.
Incredible, Ms. Lakshmi. And it's fascinating how you translate that experience into business advice. Not many people make that connection so seamlessly.
It taught me that law isn't just black and white rules. Sometimes the right answer is not the legally perfect answer, but the solution that balances risk and opportunity.
Hey everyone, welcome back to FaceTime with Leaders, powered by Directors Institute, World Council of Directors. I'm your host, Sunny Pancholi, and today we are stepping into the high-stakes arena where strategy meets the statute book, where governance isn't paperwork, it's performance, and compliance isn't a cost, it's competitive edge. If you have ever wondered how world-class companies avoid risk, win the right battles, and still move fast, this one's for you. Our guest has spent 20 plus years navigating cross-cultural legal landscapes across India and London, from vetting and finalizing complex contracts to steering regulatory compliance, commercial risk, and global litigations. She has partnered with the monitor of the US Department of Justice, led due diligence on third parties and agents, set up and deregistered entities from Dubai to South Africa, and shaped compliance playbooks that keep businesses bold and safe. Currently, she is with Carl Zeiss Private Limited, advising leadership, simplifying decisions, and building systems that let growth and governance coexist. Ms. Mahalakshmi Pathapati, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much, Sunny. Likewise, it's really wonderful to be here. I have been looking forward to this conversation, and I'll tell you why. I love talking about how governance, compliance, strategy, all of these intersect into real business life. You know, when I started my career, I was in like a small courtroom in Bangalore. That's where I'm from. I remember watching two senior counsels argue a complex matter. And what struck me wasn't the theatrics, it was the precision of their thinking. Every word mattered. That moment really shaped my understanding of law. It's not just rules, it's the clarity in chaos. So yeah, I'm really, really happy to be here and, take this conversation forward.
Absolutely. Looking forward to a great conversation. So to start with, let's start a little simple. Could you share your journey with us in your own words? Maybe just one or two moments that really shaped you, a challenge you had to overcome, and one decision you still look back on with pride.
Yes, absolutely. I think, I started with saying how what shaped me was, that court movement, and I'll pick up from there. I did move to litigation from where I started, and then to corporate law, which was completely different worlds. Litigation is usually reactive. You start after you receive a notice, you deal with problems after they've happened. But corporate law, on the other hand, is more proactive. And that's where Directors Institute sort of played a great role in where I am today. It prevents risks before they even arise. That shift was challenging. I had to learn the language of business, not just the language of law. So 5 years of law school, definitely, they teach you how to go and attack the person. They know where they show you where to look for in your law books, all of that. But this change, when I had to learn the language of business and not just law, made me humble, sometimes very frustrating, but definitely rewarding, very, very rewarding. At the moment, I look back with pride is when I decided to move to London. I was stepping into a completely new legal and cultural environment. I had doubts, but it taught me something fundamental. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's moving forward in spite of that fear. So I think all in all, my journey has been shaped by curiosity, a lot of resilience, and a constant drive to connect law with business in a meaningful way.
What an incredible start to this conversation. And wow, that must have been really challenging. I can see how that shaped your perspective. It's impressive how you navigated those situations.
Thank you. Yeah, it was. And I feel like, is this something that you can teach to your younger selves, to the people that I work with now? But I think a lot of it is self-learning, and a lot of it is institutes like this. And this is something that I was looking forward to, like I said, Sunny, because when I did listen to a few of the other conversations which Directors Institute has published, as younger me would have learned a lot more. And I think nowadays people relate to not a 100-page book, but two podcasts like this. So I'm hoping to shape somebody else with the journey that I've had.
Great. So on that note, let's continue our conversation. And let me ask you, you have worked in litigation and also led enterprise-wide compliance and contracts. What's one thing the courtroom mindset taught you that changed how you advise the business? And one thing the business flow taught you that changed how you approach the law?
Very interesting question. Let me address it part by part. So the courtroom taught me anticipation in a way nothing else could. In a trial, if you hadn't thought 5 moves ahead, you lose. Every argument, every piece of evidence, every subtle question matters. Translating that to where I am today in the world of business, I realized that legal advice is most powerful when you anticipate a risk before they come to you. Normally, if the business comes and says, oh, Lakshmi, what we are trying to do is sell to the US with this tariff today, right? And that is something that they're coming to me, and all I have to do is look at the law. That doesn't sound very powerful in business. So a lot of times when you're on the business floor, as I said before, the business floor has taught me humility, a lot of humility. It taught me that law isn't just black and white rules. Sometimes the right answer is not the legally perfect answer, but the solution that balances risk and opportunity. And that is where I remember a large cross-border deal where I had insisted on a purely legal approach. The deal would have stalled. Instead, by collaborating and asking the right questions and providing structured guidance, we did, in fact, find a solution that was safe and allowed the business to move forward. So, for me, what I've learned that the language is what matters. Replacing we can't with we can if shifts the perspective. And I feel like business leaders are a lot more resilient to something like this when legal becomes an enabler rather than a gatekeeper. So a combination of foresight from litigation, pragmatism from the business floor is, I think, what I carry with me every day.
Incredible, Miss Lakshmi. And it's fascinating how you translate that experience into business advice. Not many people make that connection so seamlessly. That must have been quite a challenge for you. And I love how you navigated it and turned it into a learning moment.
It was so, even from my journey as a lawyer to, I studied in India, but as soon as I finished my education and then when I was in the UK and, came back, and the first in-house job of that corporate world, in the first few years, I used to think, am I here to play this politics? I'm a lawyer, why am I playing this politics? But very soon, with all of the experience that I just spoke about in terms of navigating and being the enabler and ensuring and understanding very quickly in life, business is what pays you, but you need to ensure that you translate the risk so the business actually considers it. Is been a great learning. It's incredible. I love where I am today.
Fantastic. So from contract lifecycle tools to sanctions, KYC engines, tech is everywhere, like everywhere. Where do leaders go wrong with legal tech? And how do they make sure it actually improves outcomes instead of just adding complexity?
Let me start by saying leaders often think tech alone can fix the problem. But that's very, very rarely true, right? You can't have a tech developer come and build a contract management tool if you like. So in my journey so far, I have seen contract management tools and they failed because the software was bad. That's what that's what the tech believes. But it's not always because the software was bad, because the people who trained the software and they're not actually lawyers. So a contract management tool will require a lawyer, for example, to sit with the tech person and ensure there's a legal tech layer that happens. And the adoption was not prioritized. And therefore, they always say, oh, this CLM system failed because of bad software. No, it's not that. And even today, with Gen AI coming up, and my team coming in saying, oh, ma'am, we are the only company that still looks at every contract the way we do. There's lots of these tools that come out with grand contracts. So, and I keep telling them this. I'm like, look, it's garbage in, garbage out. So don't look at what we have from the outside world and think you can plug and play in our system. So I recall implementing a sanctions and KYC engine that initially produced thousands of false positives. The business was obviously very, very frustrated, right? They were like, look, legal, you're stretching yourself too thin. Do what you know, right? So we paused and we spoke to the users. We redesigned the workflow. Only after that did the system deliver real value. You can't just automate and ensure that decision making will be enabled. The key for every leader, and to answer your question where they go wrong, is to start with people, and then you ensure you layer it with tech. You understand workflows, you understand pain points, you understand decision pathways. So using automation to remove repetitive work is correct, but you can't automate something that needs judgment. So if you don't, tech can actually slow things down. If you do it the wrong way, tech will slow it down. So my lesson is very simple but critical. Technology is an enabler, but it is not a shortcut. When it's aligned with the process, with the culture and purpose, legal tech can surely drive efficiency, improve compliance, and let teams move faster without risk.
Rightly said, Ms. Lakshmi. And isn't it fascinating how tech can both simplify and complicate things? So relatable.
Yes. And we see that every day, right? Now, like every day you pick up Economic Times, there is one Gen AI article about something becoming brilliant and, something's changing. And yesterday, Logitech, I think, was one of the first companies that had a bot run an entire board meeting. Very, very interesting. But I don't know how privacy will sit, what data leaks have happened. Don't know the answer, but it's amazing to see where we are going.
Exactly. Every tech, revolution comes with its own challenges, and that is how we evolve. All right, so let's move ahead. And you have often spoken about compliance not being a brake pedal but a steering wheel. So tell me, in your experience, how do you strike the right balance between protecting the company and empowering business teams to move fast?
Absolutely. That's a great question. I think about compliance as a guiding speed, not stopping it. I have seen teams struggle when legal just says no to every risk, right? That approach slows innovation, it erodes trust. I mean, business wants to move forward. Who's going to pay my salary if the business doesn't go on, right? And that's one thing that I tell my team always. I was like, guys, think before you say no. When you say no, don't say it no with authority because you're a lawyer. Give them an example. And let me give you a real example. A regional team wanted to execute a cross-border deal very quickly. Instead of halting progress, what did we do? We said, yes, but let's do it safely. We divided it into process, implemented, key guardrails for the risks, maintained an open communication. And this, I mean, obviously I can't take client names, but I can just give you like an overview of what happened. But this approach that we took definitely made sure we were up to speed without sacrificing protection. And the framework is very simple: risk tiering, escalation pathways, and the principle-based empowerment. You follow these three things, you will not be a roadblocker. Of course, there are going to be minor risks, and that is something that every business should consider taking, right? You can't always be extremely risk averse. There will be some type of risks that you take, you put a mitigating factor, and I always tell someone, my boss always asks me, he's like, Lakshmi, what do you mean a minor risk? I'm like, no, you're not going into jail, or you're not going to get bad reputation. You're going to have to pay a fine because your license to do this cross-border may get delayed over the 30-day timeline that I have. So because you've done a transaction without a license, there may be a fine that you'll have. So those are calculated risks that, you need to partner with the business and ensure that you take it. I've also learned that mistakes will happen, but if you embed trust, training, clear frameworks, the organization can learn from them without a fear. Compliance can then truly act as a steering wheel, guiding the business safely towards growth.
Absolutely, Ms. Lakshmi. And I can see how finding the right balance was crucial. It's fascinating to hear how you guided the business without slowing them down. And that's a tricky line to walk on.
Yeah.
All right. So we have done with all the serious stuff. Now let's move on to the next segment, which is my favorite segment, which we call as rapid fire round. No
Sure.
long answers, no legal disclaimers, nothing. Just first thing that pops to your mind. So are you up for it?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So here I shoot you with the first question. How do you usually start your morning? Coffee, yoga, or quiet reflection?
Coffee.
Okay. What's your go-to comfort food?
My husband's biryani.
All right. Okay. If you weren't in law, what do you think you would be doing today?
Maybe an interior designer.
Nice. Your happy place?
My time with my daughter, that's my happy place. Anywhere, as long as I have having to chit chat.
Okay, great. If you could wake up anywhere in the world tomorrow, where would it be?
Any place with a beach.
All right. What's a movie or book that never fails to inspire you, no matter how many times you revisit it?
Pursuit of Happiness.
Ah, amazing. That's a great choice. Mine favorite too.
Oh, nice.
Uh, yes. Okay, so moving on to the next question. Who's been your biggest cheerleader in life?
My parents.
Okay. One thing you always pack in your bag, no matter where you are traveling.
My power bank.
Okay. What's your favorite way to unwind after a long day?
Again, it's very close to my happy place. My unwinding and my happy place is my child. She's a teenager, and we can just keep talking and chilling out all day. There'll be nothing meaningful. It won't even be close to any of the answers that I gave you, but it's just great unwinding.
Touchy. Okay. And finally, the last question of the rapid fire round. What's a quote or a mantra that truly defines how you live your life?
Do it scared. Just don't not do it.
Amazing. That was wonderful, Miss Lakshmi. Warm, real, and beautifully human.
Thank you. That was
All
really
right.
fun as well, after all those answers that I gave you.
Yes, after so much of serious stuff, a little, on the personal side, of course. But yes,
Yeah,
that's
it was really interesting.
behind the stalwart. Right. So moving ahead, now speaking of power and purpose, let's move into something that defines both governance, ESG, and the bigger picture. And Miss Lakshmi, every industry has its own moment of reckoning. Those headline-making scandals that shake trust and remind us why governance matters. Whether it's a compliance breach, a third-party fraud, or misleading reporting in the supply chain, the world has seen how even one weak link can tarnish a brand overnight. So, from your vantage point in legal and compliance, how do you see such incidents reshaping the culture of accountability in our industry?
Great question. Look, every scandal, whether it's a fraud, ESG lapse, or misreporting, usually has one common thing. That is that someone saw a red flag but did not act on it. That's my first thing that I want to say to the question that you had. So when I led a third-party risk initiative after a global incident that had happened, I realized governance isn't just policies; it's a culture. You can't enforce integrity, right? You have to inspire it. Organizations that embed ethical thinking in daily decision making survives crisis. Those that don't face reputational damage instantly, at least that is there. The lesson for leaders: proactive risk management, a very clear risk framework, whistleblower channels, and continuous education. And the one that is not optional is tone from the top. Compliance becomes the conscious. It's not policeman, right? You have to be, it has to be a consciousness that you build within yourself, and that does need to come tone from the top.
This brings us to the last segment of the podcast. And you have been closely associated with Directors Institute World Council of Directors, Ms. Lakshmi, an organization that's redefining how boardroom leaders think about governance and ethical leadership in today's complex world. So I'm curious to know, what drew you to Directors Institute in the first place?
I think one of the things that drove me to Directors Institute is the fact that there is opening to be this independent director. And when I talk of tone of the top, my biggest challenges as head of legal has been changing that culture in the organization itself, and having my battles with teams to say, look, even if it means you're spending that £1 extra over because your meal is £100 and then you're doing 101, just send an email out. It's not rocket science. It's data privacy that is there today. Do you want to send consent? Check with your lawyer. It's fine. I know there are times that it's very overwhelming to have to follow processes. You do it. So I feel like, if I'm part of this Directors Institute and get to becoming that independent director that I'm focused of being, I can drive tone from the top very, very well. And very interestingly, because I was in the UK as well, I am a solicitor in the UK. So it gives me that outside in view of having to sit in the UK boards also. And that's something that I'm looking forward to and pass this knowledge on, and to ensure governance is something that gets driven everywhere. More power to governance.
More power to governance. And it's interesting how the Institute aligns with your perspective on ethical leadership. That really stands out. Absolutely, absolutely. And let me tell you, Ms. Lakshmi, this conversation has been such a masterclass, not just in law compliance, but in leadership with clarity. From your early days in London navigating complex legal systems to leading compliance across borders for Carl Zeiss Private Limited, your story reminds us that true leadership isn't about saying no to risk. It's about knowing which risks are worth taking and how to take them responsibly.
Rightly, correctly. I think it's been wonderful having this conversation with you as well, and being here. It's a pleasure. Leadership to me, as you said, yes, it is clarity with conscience. When purpose is clear, even the most difficult decisions becomes manageable. Just like that, governance isn't just protection, it's the backbone of sustainable growth. Stay curious, act with integrity, and remember, speed and safety can coexist if you lead intentionally.
Absolutely. So, Ms. Lakshmi, thank you for your honesty, your warmth, and for reminding us that elegance and ethics can absolutely coexist in leadership. It's been an absolute pleasure having you with us on FaceTime with Leaders. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And to our listeners, I am your host, Sunny Pancholi, and this has been FaceTime with Leaders, powered by Directors Institute, World Council of Directors. Until next time, stay curious, stay courageous, and as Ms. Lakshmi beautifully reminded us today, lead with clarity and grow with conscience. Thank you so much, and have a nice time.